There are moments in life when it seems as though you have given everything, your time, your energy, your heart, and received little in return. You prayed, you served, you stayed faithful when others walked away, you gave when you had nothing left to give, and yet heaven seems silent. But I want to tell you today, God is not unjust to forget your labor of love. When God repays, it is never equal. It is overflowing with interest. You may have been misunderstood, betrayed, or overlooked. People may have taken advantage of your kindness, and circumstances may have drained you of strength. But remember, people are not your source. God is your source. He keeps an eternal record of every good deed, every faithful prayer, and every moment you chose righteousness over convenience. When your repayment comes, it will not come through men, it will come through the divine hand of God, and it will exceed what you ever expected. Sometimes it feels as though your faith has gone unnoticed. You've been sowing seeds, but the soil seems barren. Yet in the unseen realm, your seeds are germinating. God's interest rate is divine. He never returns what you gave in the same measure. If you gave forgiveness, He will repay you with peace. If you gave love, He will repay you with joy. If you gave sacrificially, He will open doors no man can shut. Every moment of pain, every night of prayer, every tear of endurance, God adds interest to it all. When Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, and forgotten in prison, it looked like his story was over. But when God repaid Joseph, it came with interest, from the pit to the palace, from rejection to restoration. That is the pattern of heaven. You may lose something in one season, but when God restores, it will come multiplied. Do not despise your delay. When you are waiting, you are accruing divine interest. God is not punishing you, He is preparing you. He is building the capacity within you to carry the blessing that's coming. If He gave it to you too soon, it might crush you. But when the time is right, He will repay every moment of struggle with supernatural favor. The repayment of God is never just material, it is holistic. He restores the years the locust has eaten. He mends the broken heart. He heals the wounded spirit. He turns your mourning into dancing. When He repays, He doesn't just give you back what was lost. He adds purpose, peace, and power to it. There's a mystery in divine repayment. God multiplies what the world diminishes. That's why you must never grow weary in doing good. You are not laboring in vain. Every seed planted in faith will yield a harvest, and when it does, it will astonish you. The world may have taken something from you, but God will repay you in such a way that even your enemies will know this is the Lord's doing. So stand firm in your faith. Keep sowing, keep praying, keep believing. The God who sees in secret will reward you openly. You may have lost in one season, but you will reap with interest in the next. Your reward is on its way, pressed down, shaken together and running over. When God repays you, it will come with interest that only heaven could calculate. Every act of faith, every tear that falls unseen, every offering given from a pure heart, none of it is ever forgotten by God. When you choose to obey Him even when it costs you, when you love when it hurts, when you forgive those who wound you, you are sowing a seed that heaven records. God is not a careless observer. He is a meticulous keeper of records. He watches every moment when your heart chooses righteousness over resentment, faith over fear, and generosity over greed. Nothing escapes His attention, and nothing you do for Him is ever wasted. The hands of time may move forward, but the memory of your obedience remains eternally written in God's book of remembrance. There are seasons when you give, and it feels like no one notices. You pray for others, you encourage those who are weary, you share your blessings, and yet there seems to be no visible reward. It's easy to think, what's the point? But that's when you must remember that God's economy doesn't operate on immediate returns. His system of reward is divine, not human. He doesn't pay wages like men do. He repays with purpose, with timing, and with perfect awareness of what you've endured. Sometimes the harvest doesn't come right after you sow because the soil is being prepared for something greater. Your patience, your endurance, and your quiet trust are all part of the divine process. God never forgets a seed sown, even when you have forgotten it yourself. The smile you gave to someone in despair, the prayer you whispered for a friend, the offering you gave when your own pocket was empty. These are all spiritual investments. They are seeds that may seem buried under the soil of time, but they are not dead. They are alive, waiting for the divine rain to fall. You see, in God's timing, seeds don't stay buried, they bloom. And when they do, the harvest that comes will not only bless you, but will overflow into the lives of others. Sometimes God hides your harvest to test your heart. Will you still give when no one applauds? Will you still love when there's no appreciation? Will you still serve when no one says thank you? Those moments of hidden faithfulness are when heaven leans in the closest. The silence of God doesn't mean He has forgotten. It means He is watching. Your unseen obedience is building a foundation for a visible reward. You are not being ignored, you are being prepared for divine recognition. Think of Hannah, who prayed year after year for a child while others mocked her. Her tears fell, but they were not wasted. God remembered her, not just to give her a child, but to give her a prophet who would change the destiny of Israel. When God remembers, He doesn't merely respond, He multiplies. That is the beauty of His remembrance. He takes the little you gave and transforms it into something of eternal impact. Every trial you faced with faith, every disappointment you handled with grace, and every loss you turned into worship has been seen by God. Heaven's system doesn't operate by coincidence, but by covenant. The God who saw you sow will also see to it that you reap. He never forgets a seed sown because He Himself is the Lord of the harvest. Even if years pass and nothing seems to move, trust that there's an appointed time when every tear and every sacrifice will speak louder than words. God never misses a moment of your obedience. He stores it, multiplies it, and returns it to you when the time is right, not as repayment from man, but as divine reward that carries His touch, His timing, and His unfailing love. When God repays, He never gives back in equal measure. His repayment always comes multiplied, overflowing, and beyond comprehension. The world repays with fairness, but God repays with favor. What you sow in obedience is not returned to you one for one. It comes back pressed down, shaken together, and running over. When He blesses, He adds His divine interest, that mysterious increase only heaven can produce. You may think you lost something, but when God restores, He never simply replaces. He multiplies what was taken. His mathematics of grace is unlike ours. What you release in faith returns with supernatural interest that transforms your life. There is a law in the Spirit. What is surrendered to God never diminishes, it multiplies. Every time you give in love, serve in humility, or sacrifice in faith, you activate a principle that calls divine increase into motion. God takes what you've offered, breathes His power upon it, and returns it greater than before. When Abraham offered Isaac, he wasn't just giving up his son, he was sowing a seed of faith. God repaid him not only with Isaac's life restored, but with a covenant of generational blessing. The repayment came with divine interest. One act of faith unlocked a legacy that still lives today. When God steps into your situation to repay, He brings more than compensation. He brings transformation. He doesn't just heal the wound. He gives you wisdom and anointing that only pain could produce. He doesn't just open one door, He opens several. You may lose one opportunity, but when God repays, He opens doors you didn't even know existed. That's what divine interest looks like. You get back not only what was lost, but also everything the loss prepared you to handle. God's repayment is not a transaction, it's a transformation of destiny. Sometimes we think of repayment only in material terms, money, possessions, or status, but God's interest reaches deeper. When you gave love and received rejection, when you offered peace and received conflict, when you sowed joy and reaped sorrow, God saw it. And He will return it not in the same currency, but in heavenly exchange. You gave love, He will give you wholeness. You gave peace, He will give you divine favor. You gave forgiveness, He will give you a harvest of joy. God doesn't merely add to what you gave, He multiplies it in ways that touch every area of your life. Think about Job. He lost everything, wealth, health, family, but he never cursed God. His faith stood firm through the ashes. When God repaid him, He gave him twice as much as he had before. But notice, the repayment wasn't just double wealth. It came with deeper revelation, restored relationships, and renewed joy. That's divine interest, repayment that carries glory, not just goods. Job's story teaches us that what God allows us to lose, He intends to return with multiplied power. You may have prayed for years, waiting for breakthrough, wondering if your efforts were in vain. But the delay is not the denial. It's the accumulation of divine interest. Every day you stay faithful, the spiritual interest on your obedience compounds. When the time of repayment comes, it will overflow into every corner of your life. You won't just be restored, you'll be elevated. That is how God operates. He doesn't settle debts, He turns them into testimonies. So when it feels like you've lost too much or waited too long, remember this truth: God's repayment always comes with interest. He doesn't just give back what was stolen, He gives back with increase. He adds joy where there was sorrow, strength where there was weakness, and abundance where there was lack. When He finally releases what He has stored up for you, you will understand that none of your sacrifices were wasted. You will see the beauty of His divine economy, that what you gave up in obedience has returned multiplied, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, with heavenly interest stamped by the hand of God Himself. When it seems like God is taking too long, it's easy to grow weary. You've prayed, you've believed, you've done everything you know to do, and yet the answer hasn't come. The temptation is to think that God has forgotten you, but delay is not denial. What looks like a pause is often divine preparation. God works on a different timeline because He is not just arranging your blessing, He is shaping you to carry it. His timing is perfect, and when He finally moves, everything that was slow suddenly becomes swift. God's delays are never wasted. They are seasons of development. When you wait on God, He strengthens your faith, purifies your motives, and enlarges your capacity for what's coming. Sometimes we think we're waiting on God, but in truth, He's waiting on us to be ready. The blessing you're asking for may be too heavy for your current faith to handle. The influence, the promotion, the relationship, the breakthrough, these things require maturity and wisdom. God, in His mercy, withholds certain things until He knows the blessing won't destroy you. The longer you wait, the greater the interest He adds to your reward. Think of Joseph again. He dreamed of greatness, of leadership, of divine favor. Yet for years he was forgotten in a prison cell. His delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God was teaching him humility, endurance, and character. When the time was right, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister overnight. The delay was the divine setup for accelerated promotion. That's how God works. When the appointed time comes, what took years to prepare will manifest in moments. There are also times when God delays because He's working behind the scenes in ways you can't see. You're praying for a door to open, but He's building the foundation that will sustain it. You're asking for provision, but He's rearranging circumstances so that when it arrives, it won't just meet your need, it will exceed it. The delay is divine construction. God is not denying you. He's designing something better than what you asked for. In delay, faith is tested. It's easy to believe when everything is happening quickly, but true faith is proven in the waiting room of heaven. Will you trust God when you can't trace Him? Will you believe that His silence still means He's working? When Abraham waited for the promise of Isaac, he endured decades of delay, but every year of waiting added value to the promise. When the miracle finally came, it carried the weight of divine timing and covenant purpose. Delay became the proof that God's word never fails. There's also something powerful that happens in your spirit during delay. Your roots grow deeper. Just like a tree planted by water, your faith is strengthened underground before it ever bears fruit above ground. God hides you for a season to prepare you for public fruitfulness. You might feel overlooked or forgotten, but the hidden years are holy years. They are where endurance is built and intimacy with God deepens. When the season changes and your blessing comes forth, it won't be shallow or temporary. It will last because it was built on the foundation of patient trust. Every time you choose to trust God in the waiting, you are storing up divine interest. When the blessing finally comes, it will carry multiplied grace. God doesn't just return what you waited for, He returns it in abundance. The delay becomes part of the testimony. It magnifies His glory. You will one day look back and realize the waiting wasn't empty, it was sacred. The doors that didn't open protected you. The prayers that weren't answered yet were being perfected. So when it feels like nothing is happening, remember that heaven is still recording your faithfulness. Delay is not God's way of saying no, it's His way of saying, not yet, I'm building something better. When His timing arrives, everything will make sense. You will see that what felt like a long silence was actually the sound of divine preparation. God's promises may be delayed, but they are never denied. When they come, they will come with interest overflowing and full of glory. Before every divine repayment, there is always a period of testing. God allows His children to walk through seasons where their faith is refined, their endurance stretched, and their trust purified. The testing does not come to destroy you, it comes to prepare you. God will never promote a person He hasn't proven. Just as gold must pass through fire to reveal its purity, your spirit must pass through trials to reveal its faith. The test is the place where your heart is weighed, your motives are examined, and your trust in God is solidified. It's in these moments that you learn whether your faith is rooted in circumstances or in the unchanging character of God. Testing seasons often come disguised as disappointment, delay, or loss. You may find yourself asking, why is this happening to me when I've been faithful? But that question misunderstands the purpose of the test. Faithfulness is not a shield against testing, it is the reason for it. God tests what He intends to trust with greater responsibility. If He is allowing pressure in your life, it is a sign that a greater level of glory is coming. Your pain is often the evidence of a pending promotion. When God tests, He's not trying to find out what's in you. He already knows. He's revealing it to you. Think about Abraham. God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars, yet asked him to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. It was the ultimate test, a demand that seemed to contradict the very promise. But Abraham obeyed without hesitation, believing that even if Isaac died, God could raise him again. When Abraham passed the test, God repaid him with covenant blessings that extended to generations. The test preceded the reward. That's the pattern of heaven. Obedience under pressure unlocks blessings beyond measure. In the same way, Joseph's prison was not a punishment, it was a test. David's years running from Saul were not abandonment, they were a test. Even Jesus faced the wilderness before his ministry began. The wilderness always comes before the promised land. If you are walking through a season where nothing seems to move, where prayers seem unanswered and opposition surrounds you, know this: you are being tested because your repayment is near. God is preparing to trust you with more than you've carried before, and the test ensures that you can handle it with humility and wisdom. In testing, God removes what cannot stay with you in the next level. Pride, fear, and doubt are exposed. You learn to depend not on your strength but on His grace. Testing seasons purify your faith and shift your focus from the gift to the giver. Sometimes God delays the blessing until the testing has done its work because He values your character more than your comfort. The test refines you so that when the repayment comes, you don't misuse it or lose it. What many don't realize is that testing seasons also add interest to your reward. The longer you endure faithfully, the greater the glory that follows. Job endured unimaginable loss, yet he never cursed God. When the test was over, his restoration was double. God didn't just return what Job lost, He multiplied it. Every moment of pain became a deposit of divine interest. When God repays after testing, it is never equal, it is overflowing. The fire you endured becomes the reason your blessing shines so brightly. So when you find yourself in a season of testing, don't despair. Don't rush out of it. Don't mistake God's silence for absence. He is watching your response. The test is your bridge to the blessing. Each trial you overcome becomes proof that your faith is real, and heaven always rewards genuine faith. The enemy tests to break you, God tests to build you. When you emerge from the fire, you will not be the same, stronger, wiser, and ready to receive what was promised. The test is temporary, but the reward is eternal. Every tear shed in faith, every sacrifice made in obedience, every moment of perseverance adds value to the final repayment. And when it comes, it will be more than worth it. God never wastes a test, He turns it into testimony. What you endure now is not punishment. It's preparation for divine repayment with interest beyond measure. When God repays you, He does it with purpose far beyond your personal comfort or success. His repayment is never just about blessing you, it's about revealing His glory through your life. God's rewards are not random, they are assignments. When He restores what was lost or multiplies what was sown, it is so that His power and faithfulness can be made visible to those around you. The favor He releases into your life is meant to be a testimony, not a trophy. Every blessing you receive carries a divine mission attached to it to point others back to Him. Too often, we think God's repayment is meant to end with us, that the breakthrough, the promotion, the healing, or the restoration is simply for our relief. But in the kingdom of God, blessings are never meant to terminate at the receiver. They are meant to flow through you as a channel of grace. God blesses you so you can bless others. He heals you so you can carry healing to those who are hurting. He lifts you so you can lift others. The repayment comes with purpose, and that purpose is always connected to His glory being revealed on the earth. When God restores, He does it publicly. He doesn't repay you in secret because He wants others to see what His goodness looks like in a human life. Your restoration becomes His advertisement. Your victory becomes His voice. The people who saw you cry will also see you rise, not so you can boast, but so they can believe. When God lifts you from the ashes, those who doubted Him will have no choice but to acknowledge that His hand is real. That's why your blessing is not just about you, it's about the story He's telling through you. Think of Peter. After denying Jesus 3 times, he was restored not in private, but in front of the same disciples who witnessed his failure. Why? Because the restoration wasn't just about Peter's forgiveness. It was about God's mercy on display. When God repays you, He makes sure your testimony inspires others who have fallen to rise again. Your repayment becomes someone else's encouragement. What you went through becomes a bridge for others to find hope. Every divine repayment carries a greater assignment. When the Israelites were delivered from Egypt, they didn't just receive freedom, they received a mission to become a light to the nations, to reveal the character of the true and living God. In the same way, when God repays you, it's not only to give you peace, but to make you a vessel of His purpose. The abundance you receive is not meant to be stored, it's meant to be shared. That's how the kingdom multiplies, through people who understand that every blessing has a responsibility. Sometimes God withholds the repayment until He knows you're ready to use it for His purpose and not just your pleasure. He waits until your heart is aligned with His will, so that when He blesses you, the blessing will not corrupt you. When your motive becomes His glory, you qualify for overflow. That's when the repayment carries eternal significance, because now it's not just restoring your life, it's advancing His kingdom. When your heart recognizes that God's blessings are a trust, not a possession, your whole perspective changes. You stop asking for more just to have more, and you start asking for more so you can do more for His glory. The favor that comes with interest is not meant to end in accumulation, it's meant to create transformation. God repays you so that others may encounter His goodness through your story, your generosity, your compassion, and your testimony. Every time God restores, He writes His name across your life in a way that others can read. The same people who saw your pain will witness your promise. The same world that saw your weakness will see His strength. That is divine purpose. That is what happens when God repays you, not just to make you whole, but to make Himself known through you. His repayment always comes with interest, and that interest carries purpose to turn your life into a living message of His unfailing faithfulness and unstoppable grace. Thank you, beloved, for walking through this message with an open heart and a listening spirit. May every word spoken settle deeply within your soul and awaken a new faith for what God is about to do in your life. Remember, when God repays, He never gives you back the same. He multiplies it, refines it, and returns it with divine interest. Stay faithful in the waiting, strong in the testing, and expectant in the believing, for your harvest is on its way. Until we meet again, may the peace of God guard your heart. May His favor surround you like a shield, and may His glory shine upon every step you take. Keep trusting, keep sowing, and keep walking in the assurance that your repayment is nearer than you think. God bless you richly, and goodbye for now.